Aloha. What's up, family? How are you? It's trippy being home. I just got back home late last night to be, up in the mountains in the most beautiful serenity experience ever. Wow, I have so much to share about my time in Idaho and all the synchronicities and all the powerful love and expansion and flow and connection to our mother, connection to the tribe, and then to blink and then you're back home on the Pacific. Take a look. It's a trip. See that? Isn't that wild? To go from the mountains to now on the coast, which has its beauty. It's really cool experience. It's an interesting vibration. I feel fresh. Yeah, I haven't even slept, but so thank you, I'll take that. Got caught up in some reading last night and I was so energized from the water that I've been bathing in and sitting in and just the oxygen. Dude, there's Paul Chek. Okay, Paul, so send an ad or have Penny do it. Let me see. Did I get any invites from you? Let me see here. Okay, I just sent you an invite, Paul. Dude, there he is.
Yeah, baby.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Oh my God.
How are you, brother?
Whew, busy but good. How about you?
Same. We just got back in late last night. I barely slept, but I'm soaking in all the energy from that land. Have you spent any time in Idaho, Sun Valley, any of the mountain regions there?
We had a pig farm in Fruitland, Idaho for 3 years when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is that southern Idaho?
It's right near the Oregon border, right next to Ontario, Oregon, right near
Okay.
the Snake River.
Okay, yeah. Snake River. That's a
Farming
full-on river.
country.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was invited out there by a family that owns and operates a spring up in the Sawtooth Mountains. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'll be sharing some of that with you. So I went to the mouth of that spring and their whole operation there, and it was powerful, man. Oh my God, this water comes 2.2 miles deep from the earth. The quality of the water based on the testing is just phenomenal. It's basically medicine. Water has become
Yeah.
medicine. Yeah. And we were reading Steiner passages. We were reading Victor Schauberger passages. We were jumping into the hot geothermal water. I was like, what am I doing in California? Yeah, and this is where I'm at. Let me show you, because you haven't seen my new house.
Yeah, I was
I'm right
looking.
on top of the ocean.
Yeah, when you showed it earlier, I'm like, wow, that is a very beautiful spot.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
can't
that's
wait.
what you're doing in California, right there, buddy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then also being around family and all my close ones. Did I tell you where I was talking to my family? We're very, I'll announce it here. I'm looking at probably Nevada, Incline Village, Tahoe area as my main domicile pretty soon.
Yeah,
And
that's a nice area out there. I've been out in there, that area.
yeah, it's the mouth of Sasquatch, the Sasquatch territory. I don't know if you got into that with Mr. Wolf.
There's my
Yeah,
there's my
yeah.
hangout.
God, I love your property, man. Oh my God. I miss it, man. I was doing a handstand right there where you have the camera
Yeah.
with
Si-
with Mono. Mono was standing right next to me. I don't know if you saw that picture. It's the best
I
ever.
think I think I did. Yeah, I'm sitting in my art studio right now because there's a little
Yeah.
shade here. It's hot here today.
Yeah, the temperature spiked back up, huh?
Yeah, I think it's 96 today.
Wow. Have you noticed, are you feeling into the land a lot more? Are you getting any
Oh
more
yeah,
messages?
always from the
Yeah.
minute I got here.
Yeah. What are you
It's just,
feeling over there?
I just feel deep connection. You know, I went into meditation with the land and said, did we find you or did you find us? And they said, we've been calling you for years. We just had to help you get here because, you know, the place was way out of our price range only a few years ago. And we all feel such a strong connection to the land. So when I just connected to the spirits of the land, they said, we've been waiting for you. We have healing messages for the world. I said, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah. You've been receiving them?
Oh yeah, you know, it's just Angie built a beautiful labyrinth, and I'm building a huge water charger. Did you see the water charger I was building?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right in the beginning stages of it, right on that grass, in the grass
yeah,
acre,
right next to
right
my
in front of
rock
the right
stacking
in front
area.
of the door. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be a sound chamber as well. It'll be about 9 feet tall, and the floor is about 12 or 15 feet in diameter. You could probably fit a dozen people inside there.
Oof.
I put a beautiful stone floor in it, and I ran out of stones. I've already got about $4,000 worth of stones in there, but I ran out of stones because I have to have certain types of stones because each layer I have to move inward to close the roof.
Right.
So I went and bought 3 more pallets of flagstones of 2 different types to keep the polarities going. But when it's done, it's just going to be mind blowing. It's already got a huge heartbeat coming out of it, and it's only halfway done.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, you know, you look at those things, it's the subtle energies, you know, today in the modern world where we want things to be so powerful and explosionary and blatant, but it's the subtle energies that we've hidden and we don't see anymore. And so I look at your water charger as a subtle energy that can create profound performance and profound reactions. Tell
Oh
me a little bit
yes.
of, tell me a little bit about how that came to pass. And let me just lead it with this. Hey, everybody. It's awesome to be on a live again. I haven't really done this in a long time. I've been super busy. And to be able to do it with my dear, dear brother and mentor and my little tickly guy. I like to wrestle every time I see him because he's like a toy to me. Paul Chek. It's an honor to have you here. And
Thank you.
what a
You
time to
too.
be alive in this crazy, crazy, wild mess. But that's why we put ourselves in this position to be standing here and to be aware and to be conscious and to be filled with love. Okay, so tell me about this water. I really want to hear about what you're building here.
Well, as you know, I've had them for years. My soul guided me to build this. So I don't know, probably 8 years ago, I started my first water chargers, and I was just mind boggled at what happened. So basically, what I do is I build what looks like an upside down breast, and I alternate different types of stones. So I use things like crystals, large crystals. Some of my crystals are 200 pounds. And then I use lava, black lava from Hawaii to create the yin energy.
Yep.
And so because the yin stones draw energy into them like a sponge, and like a sponge, when it's saturated, it starts to sweat out. So the yin acts like a vacuum for energy and then pumps it out into the yang, which acts like a giant flashlight. So I couple stones that alternate yin and yang, and it actually creates very similar to the nodes of Ranvier in a nervous system where you have an alternation of charges to push a charge through the body. But because I build it in a spiral formation or layers of circles of stones stacked on top of each other, then I close the roof and I can customize the energy by adding or subtracting key gemstones or stones of different types. But the best way to think of it is each stone is like a musician, and the water charger is like an orchestra that's powered by the sun, the moon, and the environmental energies, even the microorganisms and the life force energy of all the little creatures in the soil. So it produces a vortex. When you're sitting inside of one, it actually feels like something spinning you inside. So it keeps the water molecules in rotation, and it programs all this energy and information in real time from the sun, the moon, and the earth. So when you drink it, you're getting an instant software update that harmonizes your biology with the environment, and that really aids your ability to have healthy instincts, enhances your intuition, your calmness. You feel very deeply connected not only to the land but to the sun to the moon to the earth. So it can be a very great aid for deep intuitive work, meditative work, healing work. And over the years, when I've worked with people that are sick or recovering from surgeries, I have them just come lay by it, and they all notice a very distinct energizing and healing effect. And it's quite wild, because as the moon changes, the energy of the water changes. So on full moon, the water actually feels carbonated. It literally will bounce off your tongue like carbonated, but it's not carbonate. It's just there's so much energy in it from the energy of the sun bouncing off the moon. And on the new moon, it feels like a solvent. Like you drink it, it feels like it goes right through your tongue. So it's very powerful for detoxification and bringing in the yin, the feminine energies. So over the years, I've been tracking it on a moon calendar, and each time I take the water out, the texture of the water changes, the flavor of the water changes. In fact, it used to freak me out, because sometimes, particularly around the new moon, even though it's in glass bottles, in the charger, I would drink it and it would taste just like I was drinking dirt, or sometimes it would taste like metal. And I thought, how in the world is this getting through glass? And my soul made me look up, and there was the moon in the sky. And my soul told me it's the moon, the energy of the moon, the electromagnetic energy is picking up the frequency of the minerals in the earth and programming it into the water. So as I've been doing this over the years, I've been really becoming very viscerally in tune with the changes that happen inside of us due to the cycles of the moon, which we don't get when we drink water that's been running in straight pipes and it's dead. And, this is what happens in an artesian well. This is like the spring water you were just at. It'll be full of these kinds of energies. So this technique allows people to recreate the same effects that the earth has on water in its natural environment, but you can do it in your backyard, or I've had people do it on their patios or on their rooftops and things like that. And one of my buddies built one in his penthouse in downtown Manhattan and produced a huge pulse, which probably had a healing effect on the entire city block that he was on, if not further.
Wow. Everything you're speaking on is, the language of energy that we've forgotten in this material mechanistic world. It's the concepts that, nature provides everything for us. And the moon, interesting enough, I was retracing some of Schauberger's work. Victor Schauberger is the warden of the Austrian forest. He came up with implosionary energy, vortex energy with water. He was a water magician. And it reminds me of the story of the trout. Are you familiar with that story? Yeah.
Yeah, I've studied Schauberger extensively. I've got all his books and I've studied him a lot. He was one of my inspirations for a deeper understanding of water.
Yeah, he had him and Callum Coates. They put it together, and he saw the trout up in the high streams, and he had no idea how they got there. He was confused. He was like, did some entity come and lift them and put them up there? And he followed them in the forest for almost a year. And when that moon was full and the water was ice cold, those trout went right under the waterfall in a hypnotic state and tapped into free energy, implosionary energy, which is exactly what you're speaking of, and shot up those streams, shot up those waterfalls like an elevator, pinging them up. And it's things like that we take for granted, that we're not aware of, because we've been distracted so much from our mother. We've been pulled aside in these material worlds, in these homes, in these electronics, these devices, and I think you're like me. You see the beauty in some of this technology because of the information, because of the communication, because of these things. But, if you overall take a snapshot of the whole spectrum of what it's doing to our reality and our consciousness, it's got a very, very negative impact, and it's creating a void in our personal spiritual connection to our mother. And I think, it's very exciting that I get people messaging me and contacting me all the time that want to learn more about these things. I had a friend of mine, Steve Panico. I think you know who he is, Panicho. I don't know how to pronounce it. He's building a water vortex because of what he learned from you. He's building it. Yeah. These things are happening. This is momentum. We're creating these momentums because we're basically in this this mechanistic society right now. And when you look at what's happening with, COVID, and you look at what's happening in politics, and you look at what's happening with child abuse and all these things, it's not shocking to me. These things aren't shocking. The amount of debilitating diseases and the amount of cognitive problems and our addictions to foods that harm us and pharmaceutical, all of these are playing into its part. So what Paul is talking about making this water vortex and this charger, those are ways and to connect to something greater than us, to connect us into something that's ethereal, that has magic and substance. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a Zen in the Garden workshop coming up. We're just about to announce it. So
Fantastic.
the last several of them have sold out within about 24 hours, and we will be announcing it on Instagram. So if anybody wants to be notified, if you're not on the Chek Institute's mailing list, you can just go to chekinstitute.com, put yourself on the mailing list, and we'll be doing an announcement. But this one's called Rock and Soul, and I'll be teaching people how to use the various practices for calming and centering, and how to use rock lifting and creating patterns and stone sculptures as a means of working with your soul in a way that the ego isn't threatened, so that you can actually learn to connect more deeply with your higher self and your inner guidance systems. And lots of different exercises and experiences. And the people that show up to these things are always just incredible people. Many of them have been so inspired. They've gone out and started healing resorts and healing centers all over the world, and organic and free range meat packing companies. It's pretty wild. I've been doing these things for probably, 7 or 8 years now, and it always just blows me away. The people that show up are just so dialed in. It's amazing. So I think I
highly recommend that. I highly recommend anyone that's listening to that to get involved with this and see if you can get in there for Paul's programs. I mean, these are the ways that we start creating momentum in our lives. I mean, you heard what Paul said. It's like they start doing these things, and all of a sudden they go and they build their own retreat center, or they go in there and they discover a new philosophy and they bring it out to the world, or they start becoming magicians in their own right, and artists, and connecting to God and spirit and nature. It's all about momentum, wouldn't you say?
I think it's really, what I teach is how to find your heart and your inner guidance system. And once a person locks on to how to access the soul nature of themselves, then they can grow out of ego direction and fear as the guidance system. I tell everyone fear makes a seriously bad seeing eye dog. So when you learn to let your heart be your guiding system, and you use rocks, because you see, who cares if a pile of rocks falls over? You don't lose anything. But if you make a wrong investment in the stock market, especially in a volatile market like today, you can lose everything and scare the hell out of yourself. So when you want to get guided by your soul, it's never a wise idea to do it in tumultuous, challenging, scary situations until you've really mastered that connection and you can trust it. And the ego hates anything that has to do with spiritual development, because the more you grow spiritually, the more the ego gets dissolved. So the ego tries to make people make excuses about why they're not going to meditate, why they're not going to do this or that spiritual practice. But when you can combine something that gives amazing exercise, creative artistic expression, and is a spiritual practice with no fear of a negative outcome, because it's just stones and dirt and being in nature, it gives them a chance to really learn to access their soul in an environment that's safe. Then you can learn the difference between the vibration and connection of the soul and the ego. It takes a long time for people to learn that, but when you do it in this kind of an environment, it accelerates your spiritual growth quite rapidly.
I love what you're saying. It speaks on to everything that I believe in terms of the healthy ego and the unstable fear-based ego. And Steiner talks a lot about, certain disciplines and certain super sensible thoughts and meditations to work those faculties out and to develop those faculties. And what I'm encompassing here is that what this project is and this experience is that it puts you right in the zone on all levels: emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, and you can start working out those impulses and start developing those faculties and build your character, not based on trauma, not based on ego that had to cover up trauma and pain and all those things, but your connection to heart, your connection to love, your connection to purpose. I mean, that's everything, right? That's at the cornerstone of our reality, having a Maya Copa or a nirvana experience where we can come into full love and operate with those systems, as opposed with operating with fear and pain and scarcity mentality and poverty conscious and all of those things that are permeating through society right now. So thank you. That's the best ever.
There is a caveat.
Okay, let's go. Let's talk about it.
The stone Buddha,
caveat.
the stone Buddhas are ruthless teachers. So when I get people out there, and even myself, I've learned the hard way, if the ego starts getting involved and you think, oh, I can lift this big stone, and you start trying to push it, well, when they come down, they can bite, and there's no mercy. So they're like Zen masters that'll whack you for getting into your head. So it can be very, very dangerous, but I teach people to lift at their own level. But inevitably I get all the muscle heads and, guys that think they can do everything themselves and blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, if you're not careful, you get a little wake up call, and I've left a lot of blood out there. And I teach everyone to do it barefooted and barehanded so that you're honest, because the more protection you wear, the more the ego tends to sort of display its tendencies to control and to ignore nature. You can step on things that bite out there. There's rattlesnakes that hang out in the stones. So
yeah, I caught one there.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. You did. And so, it makes it very real. And so I'm always watching for the students to tell them, hey, look, you better slow down a little bit, because the stone Buddhas are ruthless teachers. They don't have any problem giving you back to you.
That's a perfect, microcosm, experience. It really is. I mean, I haven't thought about it like that until you busted out that caveat. You're taking yourself to the edge, and you're allowing yourself to go to that edge, right? And
yeah.
And if you're not aware and you're not in the experience, it's going to come back and it's going to whack you, just like anything else in this life. And you mentioned the stock market, you mentioned things like that. Doing something that's out of intention, you're gonna get smacked up for it. Do you think that's a universal law? Do you feel fundamentally that that's a universal law of just the construct that we're in?
Well, I believe in the concept of the mirror universe. So I believe love is a boomerang. You always get back what you put out into the world. I mean, if you look at one of the famous definitions of God is a sphere whose center is everywhere and circumference nowhere. But each of us is aware that we're a conscious being. So we're all a center of consciousness. So by the definition of God as a sphere whose circumference is, or center is everywhere and circumference nowhere, if we are a conscious center and we're aware that we are here and that we have agency, we can do things for better or worse. We make choices, we can enhance people's lives, or we can distract from people's joy and harmony. So ultimately what that means is no matter what we put out, it has to come back to us, because we are the center of the universe, because we're a conscious center and there's no periphery to the universe or to God. So no matter where you're standing, because there's no periphery, you're the center. Yep. So the ego learns through the choices it makes and the results it produces in the world, whether or not it's producing harmony. And the tendency for the immature ego is to fall into victim behavior or the saboteur archetype, or act out the eternal child. Somebody needs to rescue me, or just to prostitute itself for money and lose itself. But when you really work with connecting to your soul and realize that, as Arnold Patton says in his Universal Principles, if you don't like what's happening in your life, look carefully at what you're choosing unconsciously. And that's when the pain teacher shows up to say, look, don't blame other people. These are your choices. Yep. And that's why I like the stones, because it's an environment that mirrors you back to you.
Right.
And I show there. I show people how to read the stones. And so those stones will show you through a model that I've developed based on the chakra system where you're doing things well, but where you need more awareness. So for example, somebody's got issues in the heart, they're not forgiving or they're holding a grudge, their stack will tend to fall down and only 3 stones will be left. So the weak stone was stone number 4. So then if that happens 3 or 4 times in a row, I say the stone Buddhas are telling you to pay attention. Because if you come into this with an awareness that each stone represents a level of your consciousness, and you keep only ending up with 3 stones, it means that your real growth potential is at the 4th level of your development, which is integration, giving and receiving love. So if you have an intention and a model that you can project into your work, it will feed information back to you based on your own mental construct, because you are the center of the universe.
I love that. I think that's so profound and so beautiful. And to feel into the truth of that actually happening in those experiences could be a massive, profound, life-changing experience for whoever's in that.
It is.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like, you know, it's like a medicine journey in itself, but fundamental obstacles and being so hyper present, even more powerful than a medicine journey, because it's right there and you're not in an altered state. You know, that's amazing work, man. And if you're listening to this, you know, you've heard me talk about looking yourself in the mirror, you know, doing like, you know, going 12 hours straight, staring at yourself in the mirror, or pushing yourself on that edge, or, you know, riding big waves, whatever you do. Those are moments where you get clarity about self. There's no lying there, you know, similar with like sitting with the grandmother. You can't lie. And those are the moments that we can expose and kind of remove those layers that have built up. Do you like to go deep with your students on their past traumas? Do you dive into that?
Well, you know, because that kind of work can open up a lot of emotion and often requires hours of integration work, you know, I try to not put people in situations where more is going to come out of them than it is reasonable to address within the context of the group, or else the whole group gets commandeered by one person.
Sure. Yeah.
But in therapy, yes, that's what I do all the time. And that's, you know, why I do proper healing ceremonies and rituals and use the right herbal support to open up certain pathways and things like that. But that's really what my private coaching is all about. But in groups, what happens is you gain access to your soul and you gain access to more of an awareness of your tendencies, and you get the tools you need to navigate your own inner world and engage your own healing, because ultimately healing's an inside job. It's a personal job. So as a therapist, my job is not to heal people, it's to give them the tools to take care of themselves, because as you know, it's an ongoing daily job. There's no such thing as an endpoint to enlightenment. It's a perpetual experience. So we can think of ourselves as well put together and enlightened, but the next thing you know, we're fighting with someone, and only later we go, oh my God, how did I do that again? So, you know, it's a daily process of ritual practice, clearing and centering. And so that's really what I teach, is tools for the daily navigation of life and relationships.
Beautiful. We're definitely on the same page, as we both know. We don't have much time. This wasn't going to be a long live. I just wanted this to be a kind of a brief experience and a brief conversation and a little bit of a catch up. I think on the next one, I'll talk about, and with you, we'll talk about the importance of a healthy mind and body in correlation with everything we're talking about right now when it comes to the pain and the emotional embodiment of spirit, and how those things come together right there in a perfect synergy, which is really important for what I'm trying to accomplish in this reality and what we're doing over here. And I think that, and you embody that so much, because you listen to your body, you've gone through your own healing. I've heard your journey multiple times in person to you, what you've gone through in your late 30s versus where you got to now, and bridging the world of mind, body, and soul to perfection, and then always constantly moving through it and always working through it. And I think that's important. I think that's what people want to learn and experience. And that's what these conversations are about. You know, taking little tidbits of knowledge, tidbits of information, and applying it to their daily life, and maybe having a different perspective. Like, you know, maybe I shouldn't be just drinking any old water. Maybe I shouldn't just be bathing in tap water. Maybe I should work on my meditation a little bit. Maybe I should get to the root cause of why I'm an asshole to some people, and why do I have road rage, and why am I angry to my parents? You know, things that we just dismiss, we just take for granted, and we think it's part of the system. We are we're in the age of denial right now, and you know, Steiner said it. You know, he said around 2020, a third of the population will be complete zombies, and we'll have no connection to their spirit. And I think, you know, I think with that awareness and with what we're seeing in our politics and in our daily environments, you know, we could be the ones to really spread the good word. And so I appreciate you. And I also, you and I have a podcast coming up, I think in November. And you know, I was thinking about what the topic can be. There's so many things you and I can get into. And for me, you know, something that I've yet to really dive into with you, and you were a big part of it, was the transition of my best friend, you know, my father.
Yes.
And I think we could do something really special, and for me, very healing for myself. I would love to do a podcast that's outside of the normal. You know, maybe it's you and I sitting together in front of each other, and we go down the entire experience and the whole process and where we stand today with it, because it's something that's circulating my everyday thought.
We can do even better.
Yeah, we could do.
I'll go talk to your dad and invite him to the conversation and bring him in, let him share his wisdom.
That would be fantastic. I would love to drop into that reality with you in that realm. And I think it would be great for people to experience and be able to see this visually as well as hear it. And so my
podcast that just came out today is a mind blower. It's Ari Honovar, the Rumi expert and creator of Rumi's Gifts cards that I sent you, and it's beautiful. There it is, right there. Little Farsi in the armpit goes a long way, doesn't it?
It sure does. Yeah.
Is that your antidepressant, antiperspirant?
Yeah, it's my new Zoroastrian smell good armpit freshener.
you might start a new trend.
Yeah, well, we're going in that direction. Yeah, this is an ancient Zoroastrian Ahura Mazda poem. It essentially translates, you know, Farsi doesn't translate well to English, but righteousness is there for you to embody righteousness and to do good, not for others to perceive your good, but for you to be righteousness in your life. Essentially, we should help people without seeking rewards.
Check this out.
Ahura, yeah.
That's the painting I did with Ari.
Dude.
And this is a poem written in Farsi.
I see that. Yeah, look at that.
And if you turn the poem sideways, the poem continues inside the woman's body. So you look at it from there. So on this side here is the main body of the poem, but it continues in her body. And even out here, you can see she's written in the sun. So you can look at it either way, but we got together and went into meditation and painted that. So there's a Rumi poem that's literally written right into the piece of art.
Oh.
Pretty fun, eh?
Oh man. I mean, that's what alchemy is. Alchemy comes in all forms. It's not just turning, you know, lead into gold or preparing herbs or preparing certain smokestacks. Alchemy is the translations of one's soul outside of the body and imprinting it. That's a freaking phenomenal. I can't wait to meet her, fellow Persian who resides in Southern California, and I can't wait to listen to the podcast, which just came out today, right? So
yeah, it just came out.
That.
Yeah, and if you're around during the Zen in the Garden, I'll see if I can invite her up here, and you guys can come hang out with with all of us and do a little roomy stonework.
What's the date on that?
I can't remember, but it's I think it's like the second or third week of November. I think it's the third week of November.
I'm there. I'm there 1,000,000%.
Yeah, you know, if you want to bring up some Cymbiotika samples and stuff for people, I'm sure they'd love it.
Yeah, we can host it. We can bring all kinds of alchemy, and I can bring a bunch of Persian traditionary stuff as well. And we can sing and hold each other and dance and do the whole thing, you know?
I'll get a hold of her and invite her up here. I think she'd dig it. She's an amazing human being, man. It's powerful.
So good.
She's one of these people that moves you in the heart.
I love you, brother. It's good to see
too.
it's good to see your face. I will
November 14th.
November 14th. Okay, I'm locked in. I'll send a message to Penny. I'll text you later. I'll give you my thoughts on the podcast. I'm sure it's going to be phenomenal. I want to thank you. I got some really epic stuff to share with you on my trip to Idaho. With so much going on, and I honor you, brother.
Love you too. Yes, thank you. Thank you for sponsoring the podcast. You're a big part of the reason I can take the time it takes to put all that information out into the world. And, you know, none of my podcasts are ordinary fluffy shit. We dive into stuff deep, and I've got some killer podcasts coming up.
It's an honor to be at any part of the root system of the messaging board, which is your podcast, which is the 4D podcast. If you guys haven't heard me and Paul on our podcast, I'm still getting messages almost every day of people sending, wow, oh my God, that was phenomenal, blah, 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 blah. Just wait till you see what we have coming up. And again, Paul, you're one of all of us, and you are one of a billion. And I honor your existence. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you. It's Living 4D. Living 4D with Paul Chek. It's on iTunes. 4D. It's on iTunes, most podcast outlet, or go to chekinstitute.com, and there's a podcast tab on the homepage. In fact, if you click on the show notes, there should be some of Ari Hanovar's art from the Rumi Oracle, the Rumi's Gift Oracle deck in there, which is just stunningly beautiful art.
Which I have that deck here, and it's phenomenal. And I use that deck religiously during, you know, my Baba's transition and post-transition, and that whole experience. It just ties me deeper and deeper to my roots and to what my experience is here. I mean, Rumi is basically showing us the simplicity of how to operate in the confines of not living in fear and pain and frustration. That's how I feel Rumi at the deepest level of my core. And then from there, you can take it into like outer worldly imaginal stuff. So that's phenomenal work. I can't wait to listen to it. And again, thank you so much. Look for my text later. And everybody that's on this live, thank you for showing up. Thank you for receiving. We honor you. You know, your true self is immaterial completely. We're all embodied in this. Love you, buddy.
Love you too. Stay well. Thanks for doing everything you're doing, and give my love to Jamie.
You got it. Sounds good, brother. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.